Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth showcase for Access Pathways. And thank you for joining us from, not sure if you're there, but Auckland, Christchurch, and those joining us live on YouTube. To share what we've been up to the last 2 weeks. Tim is going to talk about how our concept that we showed you last time has evolved since the last showcase and show you the latest prototype. John's going to tell you about what our customers think of this prototype and our experience with the build, measure, and learn approach. Anupava is going to cover the next steps, and then we'll open up for your questions. If you're joining us on YouTube, please post your questions at any time, and we'll get to them when we see them. Just to recap our journey so far, so it's been about 8 weeks since we came together as a team and had a 1-week bootcamp. The next 4 weeks we spent interviewing about 80 people to understand the personas of our customers, what their pain points are and why. And one of the strongest themes that came through is that people who are well connected, so people who have good networks and well connected, find it easier to access and use data. So we decided to focus initially on the concept of community and helping people connect more easily with each other. So it's not to say that this is the only problem we want to solve. Actually, far from it. There are lots of customer problems that we've heard that need solving. This is simply the one that we're tackling first. So then we took the problem into a design sprint. Right here, we built a simple prototype around the concept of connecting people, which we showed you at the last showcase. Customers had mixed feedback about that. It didn't quite solve all their problems, but there was something there in the concept. So we wanted to work on that further. We listened to their feedback and we refined the concept in the last 2 weeks, and we built a new prototype. Taking it back to more customers for feedback. So the beauty of this process of fast iteration means that it's easy for us to develop our ideas without investing a lot of time into building something real, which will give us confidence that whatever we end up delivering, it's something that customers actually want. So I'll now hand it over to Tim to take you through our latest prototype.
Cool. Thanks, Ricky. So the idea of a prototype isn't to put something in front of someone and say, would you buy this? It's about testing ideas. So we built something that's quite bare bones. Do we have slides? But we do, yeah. So the idea that we tested in the design sprint at Creative HQ was to put people in touch with people and kind of give them the opportunity to self-serve, to define their needs and hopefully find the right person to help them. That didn't resonate as well as we'd hoped. So we haven't quite pivoted, but we've iterated on the idea. So the concepts that we were trying to test this round were putting people in touch with the information that they wanted. That would come from people, but first and foremost, people they wanted to know what they wanted to know and get out once they had it. So the core concepts we were testing were whether people could search, whether people could filter the search, whether they would get confidence from community-driven questions and answers, as well as, whether they would use it and help us grow the community with it. The prototype itself, we built using Google Slides, which meant we could knock it up quite quickly, kept it quite basic, and it meant that we could also edit things on the fly and as a group. But once a user had kind of shown up here, hopefully someone nice told them it was a good place to come to, plug in search terms, the results page, the ideas we were testing were the ideas of projects, community links, kind of question and answer discussion, or snippets of code. We did a bit of a card sort as well to get them to tell us about other data types or information types they might want to find on it. But then we took them through a little journey where their question wasn't quite helped by what was already on the site to whether they wanted to ask the community, which we saw as funneling off to a group of experts or subject matter experts to help them out, and then going through the process of reading what those experts might say, and finally, from the expert side of things, giving them the opportunity to publish that answer to the community to stop them having to answer that question again in future. So, John, what did they think about it?
Okay. Slide. So, what we heard overall, the responses were very positive and actually better than we expected. Everyone felt that their engagement in the data community would increase by varying amounts through the use of this sort of tool. When looking at the results in terms of the 4 personas, we heard from the deciders that they needed something quick, which told them what was happening and who was doing it. The filters for usefulness and the ratings were good for them as well, but their primary use would be for scoping new work. For the helpers, they liked the use of the filters and they felt discussion should be open. They were keen on the Q&A approach. Papers and projects would also be useful for them. Finders would look for the information first and then who's doing the work. They're not likely to use the ratings. They will look at anything which looks relevant to them. To be published, and we're likely to use this tool at least monthly. One quote was, "I'm getting more enthusiastic about this. We could make this a news feed." For the interpreters group, they were happy with the search tool but expected results to be ranked by relevance. Good reaction to the Q&A aspect, but worried about whether someone will answer and what can be shared. They were also likely to use it more passively. In terms of using our skills learnt, we've been working in the agile way now for some weeks, and the build, measure, learn process has become second nature. Most of the people we interviewed found the card sorts to be really useful for identifying priority preferences, and some said they would use it themselves in future. From an observational perspective, seeing the groupings or discards that people made presented an opportunity to ask more questions and using the Google Forms allowed us to all work on the interview script simultaneously. James commented that as he looked at the draft on his cell phone in a waiting room across town, it was like a hive of activity with all the changes occurring from the team collaborating. The iterations have been very quick, covering 11 interviews in 2 successive days with 3 participants from the team involved each time has been quite demanding. Recall that we did this each week since the last showcase. That said, it's very rewarding to see what is really key to the experience for different users and occasionally have your assumptions challenged.
Cool. So in terms of next steps, we continue to use the idea of build, measure, and learn. In terms of the next phase of work for us is to review our findings, feedback from this latest version of our prototype, learn from it, and by focusing on the concepts that resonate well with the personas, as John talked about, we will decide whether we starting to develop a real life tool or continue iterate and improve the concepts that we are testing. I think we are ready for your questions or comments.
So who's going to carry on doing this? Because I thought the team was sort of working out what's, if you decided to keep on iterating and do this, who's going to be doing it?
Yeah, so that question there, just in case anyone missed it, was who's going to do this work. So originally we'd blocked out 8 weeks for this team to work. I'm pleased to say that everyone's enjoyed trying your approach and the work. And so we are carrying on with the team, the bulk of the team at least, for probably until the end of October, and we'll reassess again. getting closer to narrowing down to a point where, perhaps we couldn't iterate anymore, and you come to a decision about whether you want to build something and what's most useful. So we're going to keep down that path, and everyone sees the value in that.
Have there been any major changes in direction or flashing lights, ideas that as a result of doing it this way than the traditional way we've done things?
Yeah, I think so. I think the fact that we came to a problem that was something that affected all the users rather than something that was just for the researchers that are in the IDI every day. I think that was something that we didn't really expect to do at the start. So that was quite a big change. I think in terms of this sort of iteration and things, it was quite nice that sort of we spent some time and we thought that actually connecting people to people was going to be what that would solve all of these things. And in the space of a week, we find out that that's actually not really what people wanted. People did kind of want that, but they wanted that as a byproduct of actually getting some answers to some questions that they had. So it was quite nice to be able to change that quite quickly and go to something different.
Yeah, the ability to be able to scratch under the surface. So you hear something, you think, oh, there's something more, and that's been really useful. And I think, just to sort of reiterate what Joe said, we probably expected, well, some of us who've got more experience with the IDI at least probably expected we'd rip right into something to do with the processes and the applications and things like that. And we didn't for a number of reasons. And one of those being that the people who are in there using the IDI right now said, yeah, look, there's some work you can do in there, but that's not really the key thing that bugs me right now. And there's a bunch of things that do bug them. Yeah.
Good news.
Okay.
Is this something that you envisage being available in the data lab, or is this strictly outside of that?
So that question there, is this something that we would see in the data lab or strictly outside? And we actually discussed that as a team this morning. And the first thing we said was that feels like it's probably a discussion you have when you're thinking about how you implement a new design. But the feeling from the team was definitely that something like this you would hope would be as close to the people using the data and when they're using the data as you possibly could. But obviously there's a bunch of questions that you've got to work through and processes you work through from that. But for the people working on it, that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
You said this wasn't the only thing you're working on. I think you said far from it. How are you thinking about going forward? Will you complete this piece of work and then move on to the next thing, or do you picture doing things in parallel? How's the process intended to work?
Yeah. So one of the things about the outset and trying a different way of working at the start was that, for example, I would be in it, doing it in the same way as the rest of the team. When I said the bulk of the team will be continuing, I'm probably going to step out a wee bit and think about the wider picture and what we need to do for in the wider scope of IDI development. So that is one thing. So some of those thoughts are crystallising. We've got Peter Ellis who's doing work at the same time as well, and we've also got everybody who works on the IDI on a daily basis, still with piece of development going on as well. So
it's probably worth highlighting quite how difficult it was even to choose community as the one thing that we focused on. It took us a lot longer than we thought it would, that decision, but because there were so many opportunities we saw to do things that would help people, and so trying to choose the one that we thought would have the greatest impact was difficult.
Yeah.
Is there anything else the organisation, the Greyster organisation, could have done to help you?
Look, I think it's different and it's new, and that's cool. So we all expected that we would kind of be finding our way as we go, and that's true for everybody. I think one of the things that's hard for us as an organisation at the moment, because we're not in our usual space and so we're doing our best, is the fact that it would be nice to have a physical space that enables doing work in different ways a little bit easier. And so I think that's probably the key thing that we would say as a group. Yeah, we've had good support and we get this picture. But just enabling different ways of doing work would be great.
But I think the fact that we've had people, it's not just IDI people doing this, is quite important as well. There's people from other areas that have come to learn their skills as well. So. Yeah,
which has been awesome. I would recommend that for anyone wanting to work in this way, is that you get a variety of experience and skills. Yeah. feels like.
Yeah, Lisa, is there anything?
Nope, nothing. has come through.
Nothing else comes through.
There we go.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.